What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 3 of Metagame. It is I, your loving host, Tyler Solly, aka Tovarsh Gaming, welcoming you back for our 3rd episode. I'm super excited. We have so much to talk about. Here with me, I have John Anawan, who is a long-time, 14-year competitive gamer.
Long time.
As well as has 2 master's degrees in psychology, which is really going to help us out in our discussion today. And then, of course, I also have, once again, Alex Nieves, my good friend and also a longtime gamer. Say what's up, Alex.
What's up?
Yo, yo. All right, so, yeah, we're going to jump right in. So today we're talking about MMOs, right? But we're not talking about necessarily any specific MMO. We're going to be talking about how MMOs affect the community, the progress of MMOs, what MMOs mean for the community, how gamers view them, how the developers of MMOs view the way that their games should work or the way that their games should be played and things like that. So I just want to start by going over a little bit of a brief history, right? Like kind of like a timeline to get us to where we are today. So I actually have this all planned out because I'm cool and I still write things on paper. But yeah, so I want to kind of look at the progression of MMOs over the course of the last 2 decades and kind of see why and how it's gotten us to where we are today. So of course, it all starts in 1999 with EverQuest. I think everybody can agree that while there were a couple MMOs or games that could be considered MMOs that were released before that, it all really starts with EverQuest, and I just want to throw in a real quick disclaimer here. I'm going to be talking more about the perception from the side of Americans and European gamers, right? Because Korea has kind of a different gaming history than the rest of the world. So while I do mention about a quarter dozen Korean MMOs in here that have been ported over to the English and European servers, I'm kind of going to avoid things like Lineage 1 and stuff like that. But so it all starts in 1999 with EverQuest. I think everybody can agree with that. And then 4 years later, we get hit with 2 of the big ones, right? We get hit with PlanetSide, the original, and EVE Online. And then the following year is what really gets the ball rolling, right? We have RuneScape, which was a huge, huge deal. It was, you could really call it like the first free-to-play MMO, right? Or at least the first large one. And that's paired up, of course, with Lineage 2, EverQuest 2, and November 23rd, you get World of Warcraft. So 2004, you have the release of World of Warcraft and a lot of these other big names, and people are starting to kind of get into the MMO genre, right? It's starting to become something that's recognized. It's starting to become something that millions and millions of people in America and Europe are really starting to get involved with. And then after that, in 2005, you have Guild Wars. And then from there, you kind of see this lull, right? Because this is the time where Guild Wars, WoW, EverQuest, and RuneScape are really getting popularized. So for the next 3 years, you don't really see much. There's a bunch of, a little bit of dabblings, here and there with smaller titles that we don't really recognize these days. But it's not until 2008 that you really start to see the what we were talking about before we went on air, the process of the WoW killer, right? So in 2008, we see Warhammer Online, and what happens with that? It completely flops. And why does it completely flop? Because you've got all these other games that came out in 2004 and 2005 that are just like monopolies on the genre, right? And so from 2008 until now, really, or at least until 2012, you have the age of the WoW killer, which, so in 2009, we see Ion come out, and then 2010 is kind of peppered with smaller titles like Global Agenda, but there's no like major release until 2011, right? And in 2011 we see Rift and SWTOR. Now these two games were heavily marketed as WoW killers, like you said, John. Companies were literally using World of Warcraft, like wasn't Rift's like slogan like "This isn't Azeroth anymore"? That was literally their slogan.
That to me confuses me from a psychological perspective. It's like, I'm not a marketing guy. I'm a psychology guy. I have my associate's license in practice counseling. So from my background, like, do you really want to mention your large opponent who you're trying to take down. We're gonna take down World of Warcraft. Like, first of all, why do they need to be taken down? And secondly, what are you gonna do differently? Because from what I gathered, I never played Rift, but from what I heard, it was a pretty tight game from what I heard. But when you say that you're gonna kill another game and this, that, and when they have what, 8 million subscribers, am I shorting them? You know, like.
Well, WoW at the time.
Million.
Yeah, WoW at the time of Rift was around. It was peaking somewhere around 11, 12 million.
So our 11, 12, so I shorted them 4 million, which is more than all these other MMOs combined.
Right.
You know, so it's like.
But you brought up a good point. You asked the question.
Yeah.
So why do you have to kill WoW? Right, and that's something that I kind of want to come back to as soon as I finish this out. In 2012, then we get the other big ones, right? We get Terra, The Secret World, Guild Wars 2, and PlanetSide 2. But if you'll notice, the time between 2008 and 2011, I mean, that's a 3-year period where, barring Ion and barring like Warhammer, which were 2 huge flops in the U.S. I don't know, my camera's all like out of focus. Oh, there it goes. But that period, I think, is really where the snowball effect of games like EVE Online and World of Warcraft really kind of gained in their popularity, right? And then so you have kind of the community or the industry trying to like catch up to them, right? Because they've been snowballing now for this 3-4 year period, and that's when you start to see a lot of these other big companies like BioWare and such coming out and saying, "Oh well, we're gonna be the WoW killer." But the problem with that, the thing that I've really seen occur, is that in that process of attempting to come out with the WoW killer, not only have these major companies produced these major titles that everybody knows, like Rift and SWTOR and Ion and Terra and whatever, but what people don't see is that smaller developers are actually doing the same thing, right? So the thing that sparked this whole idea for me in the first place was the fact that I was sifting through Steam, and I noticed that the majority of free-to-play Steam games that have been released in the last couple of years are MMOs. And that scares me, right? Because what happens when the market only becomes an MMO market? And that's the transition that I'm really starting to see, right? Is that the prefix MMO is getting slapped on to every type of game now, right? It's not just like an MMORPG anymore, right? Now you have FPS MMO, you have games like Civilization Online, which are like conquest RPG MMOs, and you have racing MMOs, and now there's an MMO for everything, and I feel like the prefix is getting misused, right? Because so this takes me to another point that I really wanted to bring up, which is like what an MMO is supposed to be, right? Because I know Alex, you played WoW for like 6-7 years, and I played it for 5 years.
Yeah, I played it since launch.
Right, and I had a thought occur to me earlier today when I was trying to think about what I wanted to do on the show, and that thought was my experience in World of Warcraft. What made that game an epic experience for me was that I had a career, right? I went from playing like RuneScape was my only experience in MMOs prior to WoW, right? So I went from the word raid meant nothing to me. Reaching max level meant nothing to me. I had no idea. So when I jumped into WoW, the whole game to me was like, oh my god, I'm level 32. Like, I gotta log in and do quests, right? And you feel like that's the game, right? You're like totally into that. And then all of a sudden, one day you hit max level, and it's like, right, the doors open, and it's like, oh my god, there's 1,000% more to this than I could have ever expected. So I went from never even knowing what the word raid meant or what an MMO was to being ranked 64th on my server, right, and competing in a top rating guild. And that happened over the course of one expansion, 2 years. Wrath of the Lich King, I started playing WoW in like really, really late TBC, so I didn't actually reach max level until Wrath of the Lich King had already been released. and I had like been that successful before Kata ever even came out, right? So in the course of 2 years, I had this career really develop, and it was like a totally eye-opening experience. But then you try to repeat that with another MMO, right? Because I've played Rift, I've played Ion, I've played Terra, I've played Guild Wars, I've played PlanetSide, I've played Warhammer Online, I've played them all, and like once you've had that connection with a game, I think it's so hard to relive that. And so the fact that companies are slapping the title MMO onto every game that they make, and that so many companies are transitioning from being RPG companies to MMORPG companies, right? We have Tesso Online in beta right now, the Elder Scrolls, and we have, Neverwinter, I guess, has always kind of like been an MMO, but now it's like the Neverwinter. I don't know what.
Neverwinter was just a click to move RPG essentially.
Right. Right.
And now you can connect to servers. I used to play that back in the day, but not an MMO.
Diablo an MMO?
Right. No. Okay. So I played Neverwinter Nights 2 for like a week, and I was too young to even understand what it was. But yeah. So you see these companies that have been, especially I think Tesso. You know what I mean? The Elder Scrolls. We've been playing Elder Scrolls games for years and years and years, and there's a very specific group of people who follow that lineage, and they're jumping on the MMO bandwagon. So what does this mean for the gaming community as a whole is my biggest concern, right? Because it's impossible for us to play that many MMOs at once. In fact, for a lot of us that have become older now, and we're not kids in high school anymore, we're adults who have to go to work and have wives and whatever and have stuff to do. So playing one MMO is hard enough, let alone trying to play all these other games as MMOs, right? And so like that's a concern to me. I guess I'm coming into this show as a concerned gamer because I'm worried about what that means for the industry, and I'm worried about what that means, for John, what the psychology behind that is, right? And why do companies feel like they have to jump on this bandwagon? And I feel that we're kind of like losing our what's the word, heritage, right, as gamers, right? Because everything has to be online now. You can't even play. There was obviously the SimCity debacle. It's a terrible.
Well, that's because EA is a terrible company.
Right. It's a terrible example, but you get my point, right? Is that
I think it's a marketing thing. It's everyone sees how well WoW has done. Like, not many games could be that popular for a decade. So people are trying to jump on that.
Yeah, absolutely. WoW makes more money in a month than most games do in their life.
Yeah,
with the exception of Modern Warfare or your StarCraft 2 or anything like that.
Which is also
it's all the same.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
It's all the same company.
They're all the same company.
But barring that, maybe like a Halo, okay. But like for the most part, the reason why though people are jumping in, it's investors are driving programming. Investors are seeing the success of World of Warcraft. I heard that they can pay their server bills with like a half a month's subscription fees. I don't know.
The amount of money they make is stupid.
Oh, I've done the math.
What is
Blizzard's,
the math on that?
It was like, oh god, it was like $174 million a year, I think. Back when
so one month's subscription fees, right? Maybe plus, right?
Here, I can do it real quick. Yeah. Look,
give or take, right?
Not to mention all the extra prices of server transfers, race changes, faction changes.
Here's the number: $135 million a year.
Yeah, we can't see that. It's just a
it's just a white screen. Oh well.
I trust you. Yeah. So basically, 1 month's income can cover their server bills for the entire year. Not to mention you got staff overhead and things like that, but you're not paying each employee $1 million a year. So the reason being is that investors see that, and they see the money. They see that World of Warcraft is making a ton of money. Well, if we just make a better game, people will subscribe to our game, and then we'll be making that money. The problem is though, WoW came in at a perfect time because there were a few other MMOs. Like you said, EverQuest was doing great. There was Azeron's Call.
Yeah,
they were dying out. EverQuest 2, they were just they were fizzling out. People were getting bored and whatnot.
The only competitors really at the time, it looks like, were like RuneScape and Eve. which Eve is
But
like its own
nobody
deal.
ever heard of those like mainstream.
Yeah,
like Eve is very niche. It's a great game, but you really have to be patient with it. Like I that's something I could not do. I respect the Eve Online gamers. I respect their laissez-faire attitude, where anything can go in the game. You lose your ship, TFB.
Yep. I think the thing with WoW though is they had, at least for me, the reason I was so into WoW to begin with was I came from a Warcraft background.
So did I,
Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, and then you hear MMO, like they show you all this footage of you're going to be able to take that storyline, that atmosphere into this massive, multi-million player.
All Blizzard had to do was tell me that
amazing.
in 5 years I would be allowed to kill the Lich King, and I was like, good, okay, you got me. I will pay you $1,000 to be able to do that as a specific character. Right? No, and I totally feel
I know you didn't play vanilla, but if you talk to most people that did, it's honestly just a nostalgia factor that we all kind of miss. How new and exciting everything was. But I remember when the gates of AQ first opened, every server was crashing left and right. There were so many people doing this, this and that, but it was like the most amazing experience. Apart from when BC first came out, like those two experiences were just I think I kind of look for that when I play another MMO afterwards, and I never see it. Like I bought Ion on day one. I was like, oh my god, I get to fly around. It's like it's gonna be awesome.
I think part of the oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just to kind of touch on the point of WoW killers, is that I was constantly comparing everything to WoW because like WoW was so good. Every time I picked up an MMO, I was just like, well, WoW does this far better, and then I ended up going back to WoW, and that's why I feel like a lot of MMOs kind of died.
And that's especially true for MMOs that tried to be WoW. Right, we're looking at Rift and SWTOR there. Now, if you look at
paste the user interface and then
right, exactly, and if we're seeing more and more now MMOs kind of like branching out, right, like Firefall and Defiance and stuff like that. But you had something to say, John?
Yeah, just really quick. It's really the more time you invest onto something, the more you're likely you're going to go back. I understand loads of people got frustrated with WoW. I had a coworker of mine, he canceled his sub like 3 times in 1 year.
I've done that multiple times.
Absolutely, sure. You get frustrated, and then you realize perhaps the grass isn't green because now I got to build up all this stuff again. I did that 3 or 4 years ago when I was playing WoW, so why would I... Now I'm angry with them, but at the same time, do I really want to go through the effort and join a new community, get to know everyone there? Is everyone in my guild going to come over? Let's say I have a guild of 100 people and 20 people want to come with me. Well, I want to raid with 100 people. You know what I'm saying? Like now it's like
it's like starting, like you said, you're just like a job. You're starting a new job. You're meeting a bunch of new people. You have to build up the reputation again. You have to,
not to mention the fact,
if I'm like a CFO making $500,000 a year and I'm bored with my job or I'm angry at my employers,
so
do I really want to be like? Am I going to be like, all right, let me change careers and start off at $20,000 a year? No, screw that.
I think something that's small too that people don't really consider is that you literally have to learn a new language to play another MMO.
Basically.
Like there's a reason, like Alex, when we're at work and we're talking about StarCraft. And people look at us like we're literally speaking Korean. It's because there's a whole other language, right? Think about the first time you jumped into WoW and somebody said like LFG, and you were like, "What the fuck does LFG?"
Yeah, I was reading tooltips and googling everything.
Right now that means something to you. You don't even have to think about. You can play any game in the world, and when somebody says LFG, you know what that means. But think about all the other stuff, right? Like, think about the way all these major MMOs, right? I've played them all, so I've seen them. Yeah. They all have the same exact mechanics, but all those mechanics are named something else. So the process of relearning what scrolls are called, how do you teleport back to town? How do you get your first mount? And that can be very confusing, and it can be very difficult, because if you spend 5 or 6 or 7 years in a game like WoW, learning that language, learning all the ins and outs, I mean, I know fucking everything about World of Warcraft. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, you could ask me any question about that game, and I can answer it immediately. But to get to that point in another game, I don't have 5 years to do that. And
Well, most other MMOs don't last 5 years for you to even
Right, exactly.
do that. So I mean, because when I started getting bored with WoW originally was about the time that Guild Wars hit, and I loved the graphical difference of Guild Wars. It looked gorgeous.
So did I, yeah.
Everything about it seemed awesome, but the restrictions as far as like servers, not being able to jump, like stupid shit that I
Right.
felt like should have been in the game completely limited it to me in my eyes, so I always went back to WoW. So then by the time Guild Wars 2 came out, I was like, I'm not even going to get it. Because I
Right.
know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to get boring after, level 20, and I'm just going to go back to WoW anyway.
Right.
And
so
I loved Warhammer, and that just I failed
Well, and
so
not to
fast.
mention the monetary investment that you put in. You got to pay, even if you paid the yearly subscription. I know they give you a break, but just assume the $15 a month over
That's
5
crazy.
years.
I'm
adds
pretty
up,
sure
and now it's like I'm going to give all that up. That's going to go bye-bye, and I'm going to start this new game, and it's going to kill. No.
I've spent something like $2,700
Yeah,
on
I
World
mean,
of Warcraft.
We played WoW for what 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
You consider
Between faction
buying
changes and server
expansions,
transfers
faction,
and
race changes.
yeah, and mounts
Right
that
here,
you can
I'll throw
buy.
this
Oh yeah, not to
stupid
mention
number
you
out
have to
there.
pay for every expansion. They always sell a few million, right?
I'll
So
throw
it's
this
all-
stupid number out here. So all my friends came back and were like, "We're gonna play Mr. Pandaria." I was just like, "All right, whatever." I have 9, 10 friends that actually want to play it. I'm gonna start playing it again. I paid for 6 months of game time, which was between like $60 and $70. I bought Mr. Pandaria, which was $40, and all of my friends who we were Alliance were now Horde on another server. I transferred both of my characters, and to do a race change and faction change, or a server change and faction change, it was $110.
So that's
For two
$220 total already.
Exactly.
And you didn't even
And-
play yet.
And that's
Right.
what I
Yeah,
put
and
into
he never
it
even
Play
logged
the
in.
game.
to start playing again. And I put about 3.5 months into it, and I was like, I just wasted a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
Like,
Right, and it's difficult though because do we want to continue to monetize, but we already dumped so much in? So it's like in a poker match when you're pot committed.
yeah.
I might as well just throw my chips in. Like I'm already bet so much in this hand that I'm probably not going to win. But you know what? Let's find out.
I mean,
And that's what I think is the main challenge is that these MMOs just aren't. They're not like an FPS in a way where people are going to play the brand new thing. Oh, Gears of War came out. Now we got to play. Now we're going to play the new Modern Warfare 32 or whatever came out. It's people get attached. PC gamers are more niche gamers. Very rarely do you see PC gamers playing multiple titles. Like for right now, I have time to play Firefall. That's what I play. I played a lot of PlanetSide 2 prior to that, and I enjoyed that game very much, but it was just getting stale for me. So it's just kind of like with PC gaming in general, the PC gaming platform, so to speak, isn't reliant on new game sales all the time like a console is. That's how they make their money. They lose money on the console, but they hope you buy their software. That's how they make money. Steam obviously wants to sell lots of copies, but they're also profiting off these free-to-play things with the Steam wallet. So the more you are, continuing, the more you have that niche game, like you said, you played with your guild and it's great. You want to raid. World of Warcraft had a lot of content in it, which is probably what separated it from everything else. I know that SWTOR people were complaining, "Where's the end game? Where's the end game?
Right.
Okay, I hit the level." Woohoo!
Well, SWTOR
All right.
came out swinging, saying, I was really hyped for it at first because I loved KOTOR, and I was like, okay, you're putting that into an MMO, fully, voiced actors for every NPC, like that sounds amazing. And then the more I saw about the game, I was just like,
And then it came out with a
it's not gonna
0.7
work.
reaction delay, or 0.7
Exactly,
second
it's just-
reaction delay.
it's like
So
on
wait, I
launch,
had
it was-
700 milliseconds of built-in lag.
Pretty much.
It came out of the
It was
gate just-
incredibly unresponsive, the combat.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I mean,
that
how
sucks,
quick
man.
did it go free to play? Like,
Like 6 months or a
yeah,
year.
I don't even
something
think
like
it made it to a year.
that.
Right, I remember me reading a PC Gamer article prior to when SWTOR came out. They were saying that this is probably going to make or break the subscription model for MMOs because you already dumped a ton of money on World of Warcraft. Now, am I going to do the same thing on another game? No,
Exactly. You're not going to start paying $15
No.
a month.
No.
it's not going to happen. People will do it for WoW, and they're gonna milk that until the cow is dried out.
Yeah, I mean, they're down a couple million subscribers, and they're still above every other MMO combined.
I mean,
By
I'm looking
miles.
at the numbers right now. I have my little chart here.
they have
where
like
the-
7.8.
at 20 well in 2012 this chart is saying it might be outdated, but global members over 10 million, and
Yeah.
the next one is a Lineage, maybe? That makes... Nah. Yeah, I think I'm reading that right. Lineage.
That's Korea, though.
Yeah, that's a Korean MMO, right. So, I mean, like... But they're, like, at half.
Right.
No one else even comes close.
Yeah,
right.
As of February of this year, it was down to 9.6 million. Like,
okay, even still, though. Even still.
Right, but John, I think... Okay, so you brought up a good point, right? So... Niche gamers, right? PC gamers are niche gamers. So, all right. So we had things like the WoW killers, or the quote-unquote WoW killers, that tried to copy WoW. And like I said, now we're starting to see things that are a little more niche, right? Firefall, for example. Defiance came out yesterday, and I'm still trying to get into the servers, which I have the servers.
Best of luck with that one.
Yeah, the servers have been down all day, whatever.
By the way, to quickly hit on that point from earlier, WoW killer and advertising yourself as that, I would say it was terrible marketing. Just to like hit on that point that you brought up a while ago. Because then everyone just compares it to WoW, and then when it doesn't kill it, you're like, well,
and then they wind up being disappointed.
Exactly.
WoW.
Right.
You know, they killed their own game by doing that. You know, you're not gonna make a game because you want to do something different. Don't clone something like kind of like what Han did. They said, "Oh, we're closer to Dota 2. We're closer to Dota. We're closer to League of Legends is trash. Who cares if they have it's the most popular game on the internet? They're trash." Yeah. Now Dota 2 is coming out, and now their whole marketing thing is, well, why would I play the Dota ripoff when I can go play Dota 2? That's made by the original creators. That's sanctioned by Valve. Valve, everything they turn out, everything they release, that takes forever, but it turns into gold.
Right.
Why would I play the knockoff when I can have the real thing? So it's kind of like, again, with like MMOs, like
because the knockoff has 40 fucking million players, and the real thing sucks.
I'm talking Han versus Dota 2, not League of Legends.
Okay.
I saw their booth, man, at PAX East this year. Whew, it was like, it was explosive.
Riot has just done everything.
Riot is
correct.
Awesome.
Like,
and I'm pissed off that I suck at MOBAs. Because I really want to play that game, but I'm terrible. I have no aptitude for that.
I'm
whatsoever.
good at LoL, but
I'll teach you how to play Smite.
Stop.
Oh no! I got to stay away from High Res Studios, man. I did that Global Agenda bit for a while.
Don't let Global Agenda tarnish their name for you. Smite and Tribes Ascend are great games.
They banned me off their forums because I wouldn't stop talking about Firefall. That gave me so much street. True story, I promise you. That gave me so much street cred with the Firefall developers when I met them. It was like they laughed and they were cracking up about that. You know, I would just nonstop, if I can talk correctly, talk about their game. But that's the thing, though. Like when you dumped a bunch of money into something, you want to keep that investment going. And I know sometimes people were getting frustrated with the expansion. I know a lot of people were frustrated that Vanilla WoW changed to something else, and to make the game a little bit more accessible to everyone. But then it kind of watered it down for.
It's so watered down.
Right, but that's what's they're in the process of making money, and other companies see that. They're like, especially EA, right? I mean, if EA's not about EA. The buck, when have they released an original title that isn't a licensed or a previous franchise?
EA is all about money,
and that's fine. They're a public. See, here's my challenge. I see a difference, with the exception of Blizzard. I see a difference in game quality. Doesn't matter if it's MMO, FPS, between publicly traded companies and private companies.
Oh yeah.
If you look at private companies, kind of like take your Valve, they're one of the largest private corporations in the U.S. EA tried to buy them out. They said no.
Valve was also like 1 in a million, though.
That is true. That is true. No, but if you look at EA though, they have stockholders to answer to. I understand that, but in terms of a creative process, EA would never release a game like Portal or Portal 2. They'll never roll the dice probably on an MMO FPS
because it's too out there. You can't take the they won't take the risk.
No,
if Valve has nothing to lose, they'll do it, and it'll be awesome.
But Valve actually, when they were creating Steam, they wanted to shop and partner with other publishers to help fund it. They almost bankrupted if Steam failed, Valve probably would have went out of business. But Steam hit, and it hit hard.
Yeah.
So now it's like.
Yeah, you think.
But then
it's been working out pretty well so far.
Origin. And Origin is just a failed version of
Origin's fucking trash.
I won't do it. I will never buy another EA product as long as they require me to have Origin.
That's exactly. I won't either, because I bought Battlefield 3 because I really wanted to play it, and it was too much of a pain in the ass to play it.
Yeah, I learned my lesson with Kingdom.
Like I said last episode, I love BioWare. But I hate that EA bought them, and I don't know if I'll get games that they make anymore because it's EA.
Those doctors, they retired, but they have the doctors who created BioWare, they retired, and I heard they have a 3-year NDA, or non-compete. It's just not NDA, non-compete. So they're waiting for those 3 years to be up because they want to come back. You know, I get that EA can throw, you know what it is? They have a ton of capital, man. Their sports franchises games are excellent. Madden, NBA, NHL, it doesn't matter what. Tiger Woods. Like, people are playing friggin' virtual golf. They love it. They can't get enough of it. But they signed that non-compete, so they're looking to come back. I think they might have realized it might have been a mistake. They took the money. I get that. Hey, it's a big payday. But I'm glad that Valve doesn't do that because Gabe Newell, he has enough. I think his attitude, and I haven't.
He's a billionaire. He doesn't. I don't think he gives two shits.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm good. Like, if I have, what can't I get with $2 billion that I can get with $4 billion?
Yeah.
And the fact that more people don't have that attitude, I hate how the rich just want to get richer. But anyway, to get back on track, okay, so the root of the problem, right, is so we don't want WoW killers, right? We don't want Rift, because Rift is like literally, like, if you've played it, it's literally World of Warcraft.
Rift is WoW.
It is literally World of Warcraft.
What are we doing here? Why did I
exactly
change?
why the same
right? So.
game?
But so there's more of a problem though, right? Because if you just say, okay, well, fuck the WoW clones, because that's just people trying to be a WoW clone, right? And you ignore that, and you say, well, let's look at the games that are attempting to jump out of the box, right? Once again, back to Red 5 and Firefall, and you know, and a number of other MMOs like Defiance. You know, I didn't really like follow it. Like, I knew what it was, I knew that there was the show and whatever. But I'd never really like looked into it until yesterday on Steam. I was like, oh, Defiance came out, and I was like, I'm a nerd and I like video games, so I'm going to give them my money anyway, even though I know that I don't have time for an MMO. And really, partly that's because I saw with Rift, what I saw was a WoW clone, but I saw a WoW clone that had really good people behind it. And what I mean by that is that, like, with the way they did player housing and the way that they did certain things in Rift, I really liked. Like, they had something there, right? And the fact that their talent trees or their tech trees were so much more advanced than, like, when Rift came out, it was when World of Warcraft was transitioning from its current talent trees to, like, the really super simplified talent trees.
To what they are now, where you literally just hit, I'm going to be a marksmanship hunter, bam, all your skills are there.
Right, yeah.
Nothing else to it. Like, okay.
Right. So Rift came out around that time, and they said, well, we're going to kind of, like, go back to the vanilla/TBC model, right? We're just going to give you, like, 1,000 options, and it's all these percentage-based attributes and whatever. So I saw room there, right? I was like, it's too close to WoW to be successful in the MMO. But the people making this game have, like, the right idea, right? They understand what's going on. So when I saw Defiance and I saw how much it, like, branched out and was trying new things, I was like, all right, screw it. I'll see if Tryon can get it right when they actually grow some balls and aren't trying to make a WoW clone. But
it looks
so
like Borderlands, but an MMO kind of.
It's
that's the vibe I get from it.
But plus they're doing, like, the show, which is really cool, right? No one's ever done that before, and so, like. And this goes back to what I said on the first episode of Metagame. You know, I donated money to the Kickstarter for There Came an Echo. That game might suck balls, but it's innovative, right? We have to support innovation. We have to support innovation. Even if the innovation fails, because all it is a stepping stone for more innovation, fund it. Fund it, fund it, fund it. We got to throw money at people that are attempting to branch out away from this stasis that the industry's gotten in. But
but here's the challenge with that. We want to throw money, we want to throw money, we want to throw money. Red 5 has had, they've been in business now for about 5 years. They were originally going to be published by WebZen. The 9 came out and bailed them out because WebZen was going to shut everything down. Mark Kern, who created the original World of Warcraft, had a great relationship with the president of the 9. My challenge with that is we keep throwing money, We have to see some commercial successes. My fear is that if Firefall, which is it's like a Daywalker, it's a blend of a AAA game with people with loads of experience with independent funding. If that fails, let's say Firefall doesn't work out, who's going to fund another MMO project like that? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because
Firefall has definitely put itself out there.
Average developer has about $140,000 worth of overhead. So that's salary, benefits, and workstations, licensing to get all the software you need and all that. So if you have a studio with, like, let's say, I don't think it's unreasonable to have 100 employees, that's a lot of money per year. Plus you got to have your server costs and all that too.
Mark Kern at PAX, didn't he say something like we've spent $20 million on this game?
It has to be more than that, man.
Or, well, then yeah, even more, or $200 million is what he said. I watched like the first 10 minutes of his speech
I
at PAX.
was there, man. I didn't hear that. I would have been like, what?
Were you in the
Yeah, I was sitting
You saw
down
his
next-
speech?
Oh yeah, I was there, man. That's the only reason I go to PAX.
Then maybe I saw it on stage 5 then, like something that he did.
But if they spent $200 million, there's no way they've come anywhere close to recouping that yet.
Right, yeah, no.
The founders package, I mean, that's great.
Think about how much the MGU cost them. I mean, that was probably $10 million right there, and that was
I
just
think it was only a
something...
few. I remember talking to one of the guys. It was expensive, but it was about $1 million. It is expensive though, and plus when they do all these booths and they do everything, it all costs money. And I appreciate what they're doing. They came out with a manga. They worked with Udon Comics to try to get people who are RPing. They're trying to get people interested into the game, and I really respect that. But the challenge is, the 9 at some point is going to be like, hey, we need to collect.
Right.
And when is that point going to be? They need to release soon. They're trying to tackle so many things. They want to have awesome PvE. They standardized their PvP in their new patch, which means that I can't craft PvP gear anymore. Everything is standard. So when I play against you and I play against Alex, it's just skill. But likewise, you might have sunk a market that way. I don't know, because they're working on free to play. So anyone who logs in has to be impressed enough to monetize, which may happen, may not. So that's part of the challenge, yeah.
So that brings me to the second half of my root problem, which is, our first problem is, okay, well, we had some good MMOs, and now we just have a bunch of people trying to copy those MMOs. So if you solve that problem by saying that, by looking at companies like Tryon and Red 5 making games like Firefall and Defiance, then you say, okay, right, it seems like at least some people are kind of getting the hint, and even though they're taking the MMO genre further, they're not, like, totally WoW cloning, right? So we finally have companies starting to say, all right, well, let's branch out a little bit. Let's see if we can experiment here, which I love. I love that. But that brings us to a new problem, right? Because like what you said, John, that PC gamers are niche gamers, right? We only really want to play like one game at a time, maybe two if like one of those games...
That's pushing it, though. Yeah,
right, like if we're not...
It kind of depends on if you're like a competitive gamer, or I guess you're a competitive person, it definitely only falls to 1 or 2 games. If you're like an RPG player, you only play
we're talking MMOs here, right? So I mean, if you're not playing an MMO at all, then you might be playing like 2 or 3 games. If you are playing an MMO, that's probably the only game you're playing, or maybe you're like playing League of Legends when you're
the only
exhausted.
game you're not going to be playing
play a game of
multiple
LoL,
MMOs.
and then you go back to WoW.
Right, yeah, you're not going to be playing multiple MMOs. So the MMO, the market of consumers to which MMO developers are looking to sell their product to is like almost fixed, right? It's there's not like this burgeoning amount of people that are interested in MMOs. I think that there's probably... Like, if I just, based on, like, subscriber numbers from every major MMO that's out there now, and, like, the rate at which people are getting interested, I would throw out the number of something like 25, maybe 30 million people in America and US, right? We're not talking about Korea in this discussion. Yeah. That are, like, interested enough in MMOs that, like, they're gonna buy one, right? And actually, like, play it. So you're only marketing to that amount of people. So what happens when... the companies start busting out of that like WoW killer cocoon, right? Because we had like 6, 7, like roughly 8 major MMOs come out in the last like 4 or 5 years, right? Now I can see that market getting filled, right? We have like 1 million people playing SWTOR. There's like 1 million people playing Guild Wars. There's like 1.5 million people playing Terra. You know, these are like rough numbers. Okay, I don't want people in the comments being like, "Wow, Terra has exactly 998,000." I don't care, but but you know what I'm saying. So there's only so many people that you can market to, right? And let's look at what is a major function of an MMO that makes it a game that people want to play instead of some other type of genre. And I think that if you ask anybody who's an experienced MMO player, they'll tell you community, right? It's my guild, it's my friends,
100%.
it's that's the whole reason that the genre is successful in the first place. So here's where I get scared. I say, okay, that's great. If Firefall if Red 5 and Tryon and some other companies, I know that there's other companies that are doing stuff like this that I'm forgetting to mention right now, but that's great. If they want to branch out and like make some more niche games and kind of experiment with the genre, I love that. I love innovation. It's my favorite thing. But if there's too many of them, the community is going to get stretched too thin.
Yeah.
Right. And so that whole the biggest problem the reason MMOs flop, I think, in my opinion, aside from the fact if you ignore the fact that World of Warcraft has such a tight hold on the community, like let's consider people who've never played World of Warcraft, like MMO players that haven't played WoW. Maybe they got started on EverQuest and they moved into things like Guild Wars, right? And they just kind of like never played Warcraft. Oh damn it! I forgot where I was going with that. but you have only so many people and oh, wow, this sucks. I totally blanked. I was like totally on a roll, and I had like this amazing point that I was building up to.
But I think let me chime in and maybe I could jar your memory a little bit. Like, it sounds to me like you're going to say, like, there's only so many MMO gamers out there.
Right.
And if you diversify the population, even with making titles...
I remember it. Yes, thank you. I love it. Awesome.
One for John.
The reason that so many MMOs flop, aside from World of Warcraft having people come into WoW and saying, oh well, this isn't WoW, so I'm gonna go play WoW, right? Aside from that, it's server, it's people being logged in, right? Especially for the smaller MMOs, like games like Rift, Terra, SWTOR. There's enough people online that chances are, when you log in, there's like enough people, you could get together a 5-man. You could get together a raid, right? It might not be as diversified as WoW. Like, in WoW you've got freaking LFR and then 10-man and 25-man and then hard mode and then hard mode. It might be, you might not be able to like find people to do all of that with. But like chances are, if you log into one of those major titles, you've got a few people logged in your guild. You could run a raid. You could pug a dungeon. You can do that. But with a lot of these smaller MMOs, you're finding that actually that's incredibly difficult. And using Firefall as an example, they only have one like boss fight in the game right now.
Yep.
But putting that together, usually somebody has to get on the official forums, say, I am doing this boss at this time on this date. This is how you contact me. I need 20 people. And then over the course of a week, 20 people will log into the forums and say, okay, well, I want to be there, I want to be there, I want to be there. And then on that time, everybody logs into the game. Then you spend 35 minutes inviting everybody, getting them transferred onto your shard. Because the way like Firefall works, it's not like you don't pick a server, right? You just log into the game, and then it breaks people up into shards. And then if you want to play with somebody on a different shard, you can just join their group and then transfer their shard. But that's a whole process where you got to get 20 people on the same shard. Then it's like, okay, well, now we got to go to the spot. So then you go to the spot, and now it's like, okay, well, now we got to summon the boss. And then so you've had this like week-long period to get one boss fight down. If that had to happen in World of Warcraft, that game would be over tomorrow.
Well, that's exactly why they implemented cross-server queues and looking for raid, so that you. Like, this shouldn't MMOs...
But WoW has a huge community. That's fine, but WoW has a huge community, right, that allows something like that to work. If you added looking for raid in Firefall, let's say Firefall had, like, raids rather than just, like, spawned boss fights. Like, for example, let's imagine that there is a raid. Right, that there's a raid. If you had an LFR option, I would probably sit in that queue for, like, 6 hours. Okay, and now mind you, Firefall's in beta and whatever, and so we can accept that. But I don't want to just like look at Firefall. I'm looking at MMOs in general. The major titles can have things. You know, Terra's got a looking for dungeon system, and so does Guild Wars 2, and what have you. And so that's fine for the bigger MMOs. That's fine. If you have 1 million people logging into your servers, then you can handle that. But I'm looking at right? So the problem was we have the WoW clones and we have these behemoths of MMOs. So if we deviate from that problem, then we have innovation. We have smaller niche games like The Secret World and Defiance and Firefall and whatever. Then you're starting to stretch the community thin, and I'm looking towards the future with this too, right? So what if 3 more companies say, oh well, we want to really kind of like push the limits. We saw what Defiance, Firefall, and The Secret World did, and now we have this really cool idea that no one's ever done. So we're going to do that. 3 more companies do that. 6 more companies do that. 9 more companies do that. 100 more companies do that. And all of a sudden, you have this market that's flooded with so many MMOs that there's no one to play them. There's no one to play them. Because
but I think what has to happen first is either Firefall, Defiance, or Secret World. I know Secret World's been doing okay, but if Firefall can have, let's say, 20% of the numbers that, let's say, League of Legends have, I would consider that a massive success. And then other companies...
That's like more than World of Warcraft.
Well, all right, well then...
I mean, WoW peaked at 12 million. It's right around 9 million now.
Oh, no,
League
only have 40 million.
million.
I did my math wrong. So let's say if Firefall could have 1 or 2 million players, accounts.
Right.
And then let's say approximately 10% of those are logged in at any time.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a huge success in an FPS world.
Yeah.
But I think companies need to see that first. It's great that there's all this innovation out there, but like I said, there's a lot of pressure on Red 5 to be successful. Because if they're not, then I don't see that spiraling out of control. People are gonna be like, whoa, wait, what? They tried this, they dumped X amount of millions of dollars on this, and it didn't work. Well, I'm not going to invest in that. Why would I do that? You know, or you know, people could try to pick up the pieces to see if it did fail. Where did the failure occur? Did they spend too much stuff on non-game entities like the MGU, or traveling to every PAX and buying the entire floor?
Right.
I don't know if you were at PAX East last year, but they had statues in the friggin' bathrooms, man. it was like
they're definitely Mark Kern goes hard, man. He goes harder.
Yeah,
he goes home.
Dude? Yeah, you know what? And I respect that, and I do. And you know, it's just a question of how can we, like you said, if you have all these innovative games, one of them's going to dominate the rest of them. The other ones are going to, unfortunately, good people are going to go out of work because they won't have the revenue to sustain. And the market will kind of, in my opinion, correct itself. If you flood the market with enough things, only the strong will survive. It's like natural selection.
Right.
So how do you but you don't know which game is going to be the one that's like explode. It could be Defiance. Like, oh, okay, everyone go play Defiance. They have to show on the Sci-Fi Channel and all that, and you know we're going to go play that game, and that could kill everything else.
But we don't want. I don't think. I mean, is what we want another WoW? Do we want another major success that monopolizes on the genre?
Well, that's what I was actually going to hit on because. All right, WoW still has 9.6 million subscribers.
Hang on. Shh. What about Titan?
That's exactly what I was getting to. Because I was going to say, what if only Firefall existed right now? It's Firefall and WoW. Firefall starts gaining momentum, you know, gets 1 million subscribers, and then Titan comes out. What the fuck happens then?
Yeah, I mean, we're all waiting for
WoW
it.
And loves Blizzard is just going to go to Titan because they're going to want to play the next Blizzard game.
I think what they're waiting to do is they're waiting to see something seriously threat WoW, and then they release Titan.
And then
it's probably done. It's like
a
motion picture director sitting on the film to wait. It's done for 5 years. We're gonna wait the right time, and then boom, yeah, James Cameron, right? Yeah, I feel like releasing it. You know, I think that's. I don't know. That I'm speculating there, but
I think honestly, Q3 2014, we might be having this exact same conversation, and it's going to be turned on a dime because we're going to replace the word World of Warcraft with the word Titan, and we're going to be like, so do you remember back in 2009 when Ion came out, and that was kind of like the time when MMOs were just starting to be popularized, like it's going to be the same shit, but
right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Titan might come out and be like, "Raw, I'm gonna consume all of you again, and we're gonna have 30 million subscribers, and League of Legends is gonna go out of business and whatever." But I mean, That's all just speculation.
That's my fear for Red 5 and Firefall is that Titan comes out and maybe it's an MMO FPS. That's something Blizzard, to my knowledge, has never released an FPS. And now all of a sudden they come out with it. Now it's Blizzard behind it. And we know
exactly.
And Activision's been making shooters for years.
Yeah, the name Blizzard on that opening cinematic, whatever game it's gonna be, everyone's just gonna get a hard on.
Everybody's
and they're gonna be like, I'm gonna want to play this game.
Hell, I'll give it a shot. I like Blizzard. I'm terrible at RTS and MOBA games, but I respect their company.
Blizzard.
Dude, Blizzard could come out with Spore, the MMO, and like fucking people.
When does beta come out, yo?
No one, that I'm surprised that they've kept such a strong hold on Titan 2. Like the fact that concept art, there's like one piece of concept art that I've seen floating around, and that's not even like probably real. So I don't know. I'm considering how rapidly we are able to figure stuff out about WoW expansions before they happen. I'm shocked that more about Titan.
All the lore is there though. You can kind of guess what direction.
Yeah, you're right.
Next.
True.
There's no lore for Titan.
Anyone who does spill on it, they have a tight-lipped NDA. They'll be ruined in the industry.
Yep.
Yeah, they'll be.
They'll never get a job again.
No, yeah. They'll never have to worry about it. So that's what's keeping everyone kind of.
They'll go work at EA Mythic and then get laid off.
That's beat, man. Like EA, man, it's just they're a business. I understand. I'm a capitalist. I believe in that. But when it comes to my games, I'd love to see more creativity. And a lot of times that creativity is a gamble, and a lot of companies aren't willing to do that. Hence the WoW killers. Let's take something, and we're going to improve upon it. Well, what does improve mean? Rift was supposed to improve on it. Well, it may be better for the developer, but it may not be better for me, the WoW player. So better for who? Tech trees, all this stuff, all these spells, we have better hockey. Well, what does that mean? That means I can access the information better. Is it easier to understand? Are the graphics cooler? What does better mean? And I think they got caught up. It's like, it's going to be a better game. But how though? What is better? What does that mean?
We've clearly been shown that just making better graphics doesn't get your game popular.
You need innovation. Far too often are people blind or smoke screened to the idea of what innovation means, right? It's not iterations on something. Better iterations on something is not innovation, in my opinion. It's better. It's iterating on innovation, but it's not innovation in and of itself. All right. So we're kind of getting near the end here. I just want to ask you guys, so what is your opinion on the matter, right? Do you think that we should have more niche games and we should see if the community gets stretched thin? Do you think that there's more people that might be interested in joining the MMO genre, so the fact that we have more of these games to play, that it's going to be okay because more people are going to come play them? Or do you think that we're ultimately that the success of MMOs is the demise of MMOs, which is my opinion, because I feel that the genre has become super successful due to things like the experience that Alex and I have had. Like I said, I had a career in WoW. I went from it was the same experience of being like 4 years old and thinking that whether or not your toy cars are assorted in the right order is like the most important thing, right? And then all of a sudden you're 22 or you're 30 and you're like, oh shit, like there's so much more to life, right? It's like turning 18 and going and moving out on your own or going to college, and all of a sudden like the world opens up to you. That's how I felt. That's literally the experience emotionally that I felt playing World of Warcraft. I went from thinking that being level 32 was like the coolest thing on earth to being one of the best players on my server and working my way up from there. And it was such an eye-opening experience. And I think that everybody should have that experience in whatever MMO that they play. But I think that once you have that experience, it's kind of taken from you. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh, well, if I go play Rift and these raid mechanics are not exactly how I prefer, I'm going to go play a different... when you start looking at it from that perspective, it becomes a lot more difficult to get into the game. So I feel like the fact that MMOs became popular on that emotional experience, that ultimately it will be their downfall, because there's going to be so many of them trying to recreate that experience that there's not enough player base to experience that. There's not enough new players. I think you need new players, really, for MMOs to be popularized, because once you get into an MMO, you're kind of locked in, right? So you need new people You need to be getting new people interested. I think Defiance is going to do a great job with that show.
Because WoW's done a good job. Well, Blizzard's done a good job of catering to a new audience by what we would say is dumbing down the game, because it opens the audience to, I guess, casual players, or it gives you more of an audience.
That's to help people get into a game that's already established, though. I'm talking about new games, right? Like,
so I mean, so then when a game launches, what should they do to either get people away from WoW, or like what?
I don't think it should be to get people away from WoW, right? I think that it needs to be a new player experience to be successful. I think that you need to invoke interest in a part of the community that's never, right? Like, imagine if you could make a game that was an MMO that, for whatever reason, appealed to, like, Call of Duty players, right? Or Halo players. Or there was an MMO that appealed to people who love Angry Birds, right? It doesn't matter. But if you can kind of extract, because what happened with World of Warcraft, right? They extracted the interest of their Warcraft community, and they placed that interest in a new genre, in a new title. That's exactly what they did, and it was brilliant, and it worked. And so I think that if you can extract interest from something that is not an MMO and place that interest into an entity that is an MMO, then that community is going to burgeon and become successful. Because
go back to Tesso. Do you think that's going to do well? I mean, there are a lot of people that love the Elder Scrolls. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make it as an MMO.
I think it will do very well, but I think it will have a very stagnant and a very continuous community, right? I think that I don't see Tesso being like, oh, we hit 1 million subscribers, now we're shooting for 2. We hit 2, we're going to shoot for 3. Like, but I think that they're going to be like, okay, we released and we sold 758,000 copies, and then a year from now they're going to be like, we're at 1 million, right? It's going to be, but I think that the people that are there a year later are going to be all the same people, which I think that's what matters, right? It's not about numbers to me. Like, I know that publishers have stockholders to talk to and whatever, and that money is really the driving force behind all this. But I think that money is ultimately not going to. I'm looking at success. To me, what success means for an MMO is the influence that it has on the community. I don't give a fuck about numbers. Like, that's for the companies to deal with, and if they're all about money, then that's going to be their damn downfall. We've seen it with EA, we've seen it with other companies, and then we've seen the opposite with companies like Valve, who say, we're not really worried about money because we make a shit ton of money, so we're just going to do really cool stuff that everybody likes. And that's why the community is so driven towards a company like Valve. It's because they're worried, and Red 5 too, it's because they're worried about their players, they're worried about their community, they want to establish something that matters, right? Something that actually has influence, rather than just looking at the bottom line. And I think that that's a huge part of it.
Yes, I certainly agree. It's tough though, because with again, with all the innovation, some people are going to be more attracted to that than others. But a lot of companies love to recycle. I mean, that's why Call of Duty comes out every year. The key.
Madden has come out every year since.
Oh my god! Since I was playing second gen, kid, dude. The key is to create a game. Don't just try to take, like you said, it shouldn't be about taking subscribers from WoW. It should be taking people from any game, or developing new markets and developing new games. Red 5's trying to do that with Firefall. They're trying to appeal to the MMO gamer, appeal to the shooter gamer. They always said that they're a shooter first off and foremost, but they have MMO mechanics as well. So the key is to just try to find a company that isn't going to exploit their fan base like an EA. And even, I don't know, I wouldn't say Blizzard to a degree, because they're still charging a subscription, but you know what, people will pay it. So I mean, find a company like Red 5 or whatever, whoever's making Defiance or whoever, that really cares about what their community says, and that they're going to just try to take in their feedback. Not necessarily going to do everything that they request, that's impossible, but kind of take in player feedback to make the experience better for everybody. That's the key. And I think when game companies start doing that, and I think if Red 5 can be successful, I think if they hit, I wouldn't be surprised if they put up numbers comparable, like, to League of Legends. and that will make them ultimately more profitable. You come correct with your
An
product.
MMO will never hit the numbers of League of Legends, but I see what you're saying.
No, but it's free to play though. That's a little bit different.
Most MMOs are free to play now. In fact, the only one that isn't is WoW.
True.
Because
the reason League of Legends has so many numbers...
Even if they hit numbers 10% of that of League of Legends, I'd still consider that a massive success.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
If you're in the millions of downloads and you got a good portion of your community monetizing, you know, and you keep expanding, League of Legends player base is growing. It's been out for 3 years. How does a game that usually what happens, a game is out for a while, then it trickles down. You know, sales don't increase.
It's because of it's because of the exposure, how easy it is to get into the game. We had this conversation last episode. I don't know, John, if you got to watch it.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But I mean, the reality is though, it's just kind of like finding a developer that will listen to at least hear the community out, and don't make changes just to increase their bottom line. They make changes because they feel it's appropriate for the game. Money will come. It's going to come. Release a good product. That's all I ask.
Yeah. Right on. All right. Well, this has been absolutely excellent. This was definitely a fun conversation. There's certainly more to be said on the matter, but we are definitely past the hour mark. So I'm going to go ahead and have to begin closing remarks. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. This has been, of course, episode 3 of Metagame. I had John... How do I say your last name?
Anawan, dude.
Anawan. John Anawan. You can follow him on Twitter at FirewaterFX. That's going to be the letters FX at the end there, at FirewaterFX.
Yes, please.
And you can follow Alex Nieves at Fellborn, Fellborn. He is... Alex, you're streaming StarCraft now. He's on his way through the StarCraft ladder from Platinum to hopefully Grand... I mean, I should see you at, like, GSL next year, right? Like
I'm high diamond right now, so...
Right, so by 2014 you should be like beating Flash, right, and Grubby, like. Right?
Yeah, someone who everyone thinks is a god.
Yeah. All right, well, this has been great. Make sure to come check back for episode 4 of Metagame. I know that last episode I couldn't really come up with ideas. That was definitely a bit of a flop on my part. But now I have more ideas than I know what to do with. So that's great. We'll definitely have plenty to talk about in the next show. And thanks for watching, guys. It's been great, and we'll see